Eat, sleep, bet, repeat. That's how we get down on the opening line at EliteSportsBetting.com. Welcome to the post-Super Bowl, post-football season era of the sporting world right now. Frank was so broken up about it that he couldn't even join us this morning. So anyway, we'll be fine. I got my man Paulie here. We're going to talk a little NBA basketball. Paulie, what's up, man? How'd your day go yesterday? Good day betting the Super Bowl?
Yeah, Super Bowl went pretty good. I think I went like 6-3. I think on the prop, so it was a good day there.
Yeah, I had it wasn't my big bet of the day, but I had a little bit of money on that Patrick Mahomes first touchdown for plus 2,000. So even the fact that I lost out on my big bet, which was Patrick Mahomes over 30 yards rushing, 30 and a half yards rushing, on a couple kneel downs at the end, it still worked out positive. So I'm not going to complain about that either.
Positive day is a good day.
That's it. More money in the bank account. That's all we're worried about. And we're going to
Yeah.
try to do that again here today for you guys with a rather interesting NBA slate. So before we got on, Paulie and I were talking. Tell the listeners what you were saying about the spreads and the movement you've seen, or the lack thereof, this morning.
Yeah, normally when you're looking at an NBA slate, you're going to see with this many games. I think we got 10 games today.
Yep.
There's normally going to be a couple games that have already moved a bunch from the opening lines. Literally, there's very little movement in the market. I think the only game that's moved more than a half point or a point since open is New York and Cleveland. And New York opened as a 1.5 point favorite and immediately will move to like a 1.5 point favorite for Cleveland, which in all actuality really isn't much of a movement because it's right around zero there. So really the market is saying, hey, the numbers that are out here are pretty much spot on and there's nothing that's really far off. And even on the over-under side, you haven't seen anything that's been, bet up or down significantly more than 2 points I see right now, which is kind of a little bit different than normal.
Yeah, and it's surprising too because on a day like today, day after the Super Bowl, where everybody was kind of betting yesterday, you would think a lot of people have money in their accounts, and that this would be a day where a lot of people are betting, maybe handle a little bit higher today than usual. Because you got people going to cash tickets, they'll make some bets. You got people who won money, they're going to put it back in. So that's surprising that we haven't seen much movement here. We do have 10 games though, so let's go through them. We'll go through them a little bit quicker than normal today because, like you said, there's not a lot of movement in there. So not a lot of things that we really got to talk about or that we got to, really worry about here. So we'll start with the first game on the day, which is the one you just talked about, the New York Knicks against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Knicks opened as a 1.5 point favorite, 1 point favorite. They're down now to a 1 point dog, 1.5 point dog, depending on where you're looking. And yeah, not a lot of movement at all. I mean, the total started at 217. It's still sitting at 217. Big injury news in this game is actually the status of Julius Randle. Julius Randle, who has been playing very well lately, listed as questionable today. If he can't go, I'm assuming we'll probably get a lot of Bobby Portis if that's the case. But, what are you thinking about for this game? And will the Randle thing change anything? Or do you think that's what probably changed the line to begin with?
Yeah, that's probably what would change that movement there in the small movement of the line there. I have the game lined at -2 for Cleveland, assuming Randle is out. If Randle is in, I have it closer to a pick'em, and that pretty much is what the line movement we saw.
Yeah, and there you go. That's the 2 points in one direction to the other direction right there. So, again, not much to bet on here, not much to really look at. There are some injuries on the Knicks side. Obviously the RJ Barrett one we've known about for a while. Looks like Franklin Ntilikina is banged up too, but they did just welcome back Dennis Smith Jr. a couple games ago. So I don't know if that's really going to have too much of an impact there. So let's talk about the next game. This is actually the two lowest scoring teams in the league, the Orlando Magic and the Charlotte Hornets. Both of them at around, I think they're both around 103 points a game here. This one has a total of 202 at the moment. It actually opened at 202.5, so a little bit of movement there. Orlando opened as a 3.5 point favorite. They're actually up to a 4.5 point favorite here. The only real piece of news I'm seeing is the availability of Evan Fournier, listed as questionable. We'll see what happens with that. I assume he's going to play. He's been questionable all week, and he's pretty much played all week.
Yeah. Yeah, the only thing I see in this game is that how low the total is, but in reality, that's about right. It's not often that in these days in the NBA you see a total around 200 when we're so used to seeing stuff in the mid 220s everywhere else, right? But you have two teams that are paced down, that are playing a little bit older school basketball. you're going to see a game that's going to end up about 100 to 100 here, right? And then in terms of the spread, I have it as Orlando as a 4-point favorite, so I'm pretty much right on market.
Yeah, I mean, these are, like I said, these are the two lowest scoring teams in the league, both averaging around 103 points a game this year. They're also two of the slowest pace teams in the league. If you take the whole season averages, I think Orlando is 28th and Charlotte is 30th, or vice versa there. So again, even for fantasy, not a lot of stuff I'm going to be looking at in this game. So the next game we have to talk about, Golden State Warriors, Washington Wizards. Pretty much the complete opposite of the last game we just talked about.
Yeah.
This is one where I think the total right now is sitting at 234, 235, 234. Washington is favored by 5.5 points. The Wizards are actually getting healthy, Paulie. All those big guys are coming back. They had Bryant back last week. Today they're welcoming back Rui Hachimura, and I think they also are welcoming back Moritz Wagner as well. So here's a team that went from having a real short rotation to, basically being back to full health at this point. What are you looking at here in this Golden State? Oh, and the Golden State side too. D'Angelo Russell listed as questionable here, which could wind up being a big deal if he's not able to play. But what are you looking at here, Golden State, Washington?
Yeah, I make the line 6 here. So the original market move, where it moved up to 5.5, pretty much agrees with that. The only thing to note here is that Washington, I've kind of picked up on a little bit of a trend here, is that Washington's pace and scoring efficiency really picks up towards the end of the first quarter, into the end of the first half, to where, when we were talking about like over-under results for like first quarters and first half, they're actually, they've gone under more than they've gone over in the first quarter, yet they've gone over in the first half at the highest rate in the NBA.
Interesting.
Which is a little bit weird. And then so by looking at stuff like that, digging into like the rotations and stuff like that, it looks like they just towards the end of the first quarter, once the bench comes in, their defensive efficiency and offensive efficiency picks up because their pace picks up a little bit. But the only thing that's hesitant on that in terms of me live betting it is the fact that all these guys are back and you're changing rotations. So we've seen in the last couple of weeks that things have changed a little bit. The fact that one, Beal is back healthy. You have all the other, ancillary pieces are now back. So I'm hesitant to even fire a live bet in this game just because of the unknowns with all the players going back.
So something like this. Now, again, obviously, we with all the guys that are coming back and everything that could change here. But something like this, would it be better to kind of play the quarters where you take unders in the first and overs at the half, or is this something where you want to kind of wait until whatever it is, the 8-minute mark, the 4-minute mark, where these guys start coming out and seeing if the total started at 235 and it's down to like 227 now? We look for like an in-game over or something like that.
Yeah, this will be a wait and see spot for me. I'm not going to touch anything pregame here. Probably won't touch anything live either. If anything, maybe even one of the next Wizards games, if it's a good matchup, might play like the second quarter over, and you can just play it ahead depending on what the pregame total is, because a lot of times you'll see the second quarter number we saw a couple days ago for last Wizards game was like 2.5 points less than 1 quarter of the full game total.
Total, yeah.
Which, when you're seeing that, just doesn't necessarily make that much sense. So when you see that there's a little bit of value there, I'll play it pregame. If it doesn't look like there's value, I might just wait to see if there's a spot to jump in line.
All right, and as always, for those of you who are looking to get some in-game action going, Paulie, Tommy, myself, MLB Model, Night Ghost. I mean, you got 4 or 5 of us that are always stopping in the chat over there at EliteSportsBetting.com. We got an NBA chat. We got chats for every sport, actually, but obviously NBA is the big one right now. NBA college basketball action. And, these guys are firing in lines mid-game depending on how things are going. So, not only do we do these shows in the morning, but we also kind of lead you guys along the betting day and kind of go through what we're playing with you guys as well. So if you're looking for action, definitely make sure you get over to EliteSportsBetting.com and check that out. So next game we got here, Dallas Mavericks, Indiana Pacers. Obviously, the big news here is no Luka Doncic for the Dallas Mavericks. That's going to change things for them. This game it started with a 218 total. Indiana favored by 4. Actually seeing this one drop a little bit, Paulie. 214.5 is what I'm seeing out in the market right now, with Indiana a little bit of a bigger favorite at 5.5 here.
Yeah, I make the line for this one right at 5.5. So, pretty much right on market there as well. And I also agree with the slight movement down. I had it total at 215. So pretty much spot on here. One thing to note is it is always interesting to see how Dallas plays without Doncic, just because who's going to be making up all of the efficiency standpoint, right? Because Doncic, when he's in the game, his usage is so high. Who's going to be the guy to replace that? So what do you think on the fantasy side there?
Well, the good thing about today is Porzingis is actually scheduled to play, and
Correct,
the guy. Yeah. He's the guy who we've seen the biggest bumps for. Like with Luka Doncic in the game, he's averaging like 34, 35 fantasy points a game. Without Doncic, he's averaging over 50. So I mean, he's going to pick up the big bulk of it. The guard thing is tough for me though, because Jalen Brunson played well last game. Jalen Brunson played well earlier in the year when Doncic was out. But the first couple games, you saw like DeLon Wright starting to get minutes. They dusted off J.J. Barea, brought him back in there. Seth Curry was playing minutes, but now Seth Curry's going to be out today too.
Yeah.
So the guard thing is a little bit harder to figure. I still like Brunson. The problem with fantasy is they raised his price. So, I mean, I don't want to pay $6K for Brunson. Brunson at $6K, that's like his max. Like his best games are going to be 35 fantasy points. So for $6K, there's nothing left there upside-wise. So Porzingis, but you still got to worry about Porzingis' health too. So, that's why I don't disagree with the move down in the total points, and I don't really disagree with the fact that Indiana's a pretty decent favorite here at home. Indiana is going to be playing most likely without T.J. Warren today, but they did get back Oladipo, so it's just another way to kind of squeeze some minutes, and I'm sure they'll figure out how to add all that together. This is a team that's been interesting to me because we haven't seen them at full health all season long. So we don't really know how this rotation is going to work out once, everybody's healthy and good to go and back up to, like Oladipo's eventually going to get back up above 30 minutes. So when he gets up there, who's going to lose minutes? Is it going to be Warren? Is it going to be Lamb? Is it going to be, Brogdon? Is it just going to be backup guys like Aaron Holiday, Justin Holiday, So we really got to see how that all works out. Justin Holiday, though, for fantasy, somebody I have a little bit of interest in here today without TJ Warren. He's the guy who saw the most minutes bump there and on that side of it at least. So let's talk about the next game here. Phoenix and Brooklyn. This was one of those games that they actually just put a lineup somewhat recently. Kyrie Irving's going to be out in this game, so that's obviously a big deal. On the Phoenix side, they have a ton of injuries, and I'm not really sure who's going to be in or out here. Ricky Rubio, questionable. Ty Jerome, questionable. Cam Reddish is out. You look at some of those big guys. Saric, I don't think even traveled with the team. So he's listed as questionable, but my guess is he's going to be out. That would mean Saric, Baines, and Kaminsky are all out there for them. We might get a Check Diallo sighting today for the Phoenix Suns. So we'll have to see how that works out. But they do finally have a lineup here. Brooklyn is favored by 2. The total is 224, which is down from 228, which it opened as – listen, I know a couple of these guys aren't going to play, but at this point, I can't tell you which ones.
Yeah, I saw it open at 227 and a half, and it's pretty much 225 in the total in most spots now in the market. It's one of those where it dipped down, and then you saw a little bit of buyback that just like jumped right back up in the last few minutes. But in terms of like what I see the total at, I had the total of 224 and a half. So not a big enough edge for me to play here. On the spread side, I have Brooklyn as a 3.5-point favorite, and it's currently sitting 2.5 in most places. So it's a small edge on Brooklyn, but it's probably not enough. It's one of those where I'm going to want to see what the injuries are, and then it might be one of those if Brooklyn gets down in the game and you can get plus money, on Brooklyn to win the game. Like if Phoenix gets up 6-7 in the first quarter, you'll get Brooklyn plus 115 for the game. That might be something that interests me.
So with the line that you made, who are you expecting to play, or who do you have out here for Phoenix? Like the Brooklyn side's easy. We know Kyrie's out. Everybody else is pretty much healthy though. The Phoenix side is the tough one because you got all these guys questionable.
Yeah. So the way I usually make the lines, I'll figure out a percentage that I think the person's going to play, and then apply that percentage to the line. So this is assuming that roughly if it's questionable, 60 to 70% of the time that player is out. So I'm basically taking that percentage and applying that to the line. So if all the players are out, it's going to be an additional probably 1.5 point advantage, just because of there's still a 20 or 30% chance that they're going to play into my model pretty much.
Right. So I mean, so you have it at 3.5. So let's say they announce out like Rubio, Saric, let's say Rubio and Sarge. Those are probably the two big guys that'll move. I don't think Ty Jerome's really moving lines here. You would have it maybe closer to 4 or 5?
Yeah, so if everybody gets ruled out, it's going to move up about a point to point and a half.
All right, so I mean, at 2.5 right now, again, if they play, you still got a slight edge there, and if those guys don't play, maybe you have a little bit bigger one. I actually put a bet in on the Nets this morning, so I'm just trying to talk myself into it not being a bad idea right now. So we'll see what's happening there. All right, so next game here, we got Philadelphia against Miami. This is a game that I don't have a lot of interest in for fantasy, but one that I definitely want to watch. Miami is favored. They opened at 3.5. It's around 2.5, 3 right now, depending where you're looking. Total opened at 213. I'm seeing it 212, 212.5 here. So, again, not much movement, but a little bit there. Miami being favored, 212 total, not being a big number. It looks like Joel Embiid is going to play today. Josh Richardson obviously still out. That's a big thing for them. Al Horford, I think, is still out today as well.
Yeah, I haven't heard any news in terms of whether Horford's going to play in the game or not. That'll have a little bit of effect on the spread, about 1.5 points for me here. And I currently have Miami as a 3-point favorite with a total of like 214. So really no value on either side or total here.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, for fantasy, I don't have a lot of exposure here. For sports betting, I'm probably not looking really, to have anything down on this game. But this is a game that I'm looking forward to watch. I think those are two good teams and two teams that are probably going to be there in the East and have a say on how things work out. A little bit of a revenge game for Jimmy Butler as well against his old team. I think he played poorly against them twice, and then he had one game where he went off and was like, I don't know, it was like 25, 9-9 or something like that. So God only knows what his production will be here today. Another game with a lot of injury news, a tough one to kind of break down right now. Boston against Atlanta. Boston opened as a 5.5-point favorite. They're up to 6. The total was 227.5. It's down to 225.5. On the Boston side, we know Kemba Walker is going to be out here. Marcus Smart is listed as questionable. Enes Kanter was upgraded to questionable, so he may be in line to return here today. How many minutes he winds up playing, I don't know, and they did just welcome back Jason Tatum. On the Hawks side, it's an absolute mess here. Yeah, I mean, you got Trae Young questionable. You got DeAndre Hunter questionable. You got Bruno Fernando questionable. You got DeAndre Bembry questionable. And then you have Jabari Parker, Alex Len, and Cam Reddish, who are already ruled out. A couple of those guys have been out for a while. But that's legitimately 7 guys that have been rotation pieces for them at some point this year. Like I said, really tough to kind of break this one down with all the injuries. But anything you got here? Because I actually do have a strong lean in this game.
Yeah, I have a small edge on Boston here, sitting. I make the game at 7. But the only thing is, I don't necessarily want to fire on that because if let's say if Trae Young is playing, that number is going to be lower than 7. So I don't want to fire on it at this point because even if all those guys are out, I think the number probably moves to like 8.5, which is going to be a little bit of value based on the market being at 6. But if Trae Young decides to play, that number could drop down to like 4.5. So at this point, I'm going to sit out and wait to see the news. And once we know what the rosters are, I might play the game live because it's one of those also where if Atlanta gets a small first quarter lead and you can get Boston, -3 or better, I think I'd be willing to play that.
Yeah, so I actually played it at 5.5 this morning. And the other thing that I really like is I played the over-under at under 227. So before it kind of came down a little bit here. And there's 2 thoughts that I have here. I mean, all right, if Trae Young plays, that's going to be great. But Trae Young is one of those guys that affects the pace a lot. So if Trae Young doesn't play, I can see this game going under. And if Trae Young doesn't play, I also don't know how close this game is going to stay. Because if you look at the guys that are going to be out there, it's going to be like Jeff Teague, Vince Carter. Vince Carter could play 30 minutes today. Like, it's like, they just really – they're down to like 7 or 8 guys dressing. They may even have to call up some D-League guys to make sure they have enough guys in this game. So, good.
And then there's one thing in this game I think you could do. I'm usually not a guy that parlays much, but I think correlation-wise, we always talk about Trae Young. So if Young does sit, we're going to have a little bit more edge on the spread and also a bigger edge on the under. So because of, all of his scoring and, pace that goes with Young, where you could actually parlay the under and Boston spread here for this game.
Yeah, and like I said, those are the 2 sides of it that I'm kind of on. Yeah. But again, the big news is Trae Young, because if Trae Young does play, this game could wind up going over. And, like you said, the spread at tip could be, 3.5 or 4 or something. So especially if like a Marcus Smart sits out on the other side, which might,
Correct.
take a little bit off of the Boston side. So definitely something interesting at this point. You're kind of just rolling the dice on injury news. But this is definitely a game I'm going to be interested in, and a lot of interest in this game for fantasy, because if there's going to be 230 points and the Hawks only have 7-man rotation and all those guys other than Trae Young are cheap, there's going to be a few of them that end up on the cash game article that'll be coming out later on EliteFantasy.com. All right, so Detroit and Memphis is the next game we have. Memphis started as a 6.5-point favorite. They're up to an 8-point favorite. Total started at 230, down to 227.5. Looking for major injury news. I think Derrick Rose, probably the reason for a lot of this. Derrick Rose listed as questionable, did not play the second half of their last game. Reggie Jackson stepped in there. Reggie Jackson, a guy in fantasy who will probably step in here today. But just looking at what I'm seeing with the movement already on this line, I don't feel very good about Derrick Rose's chances to play.
Yeah, I have Rose ruled out here for this game based upon what we saw yesterday. There's no real reason for them to play him on the back-to-back here after sitting out the second half of the groin injury yesterday. Mm-hmm. As we know, groin injury is some of the hardest injuries to recover from, let alone doing it on a back-to-back. So I make this line 8.5 for Memphis here, so about a half-point edge right now. And the over-under is pretty much spot on. I have it at 227, and it's 227.5, 228 in the market right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think Detroit is going to struggle to score. I have a hard time laying 8.5 points with the Memphis Grizzlies. I mean, and I know they're getting healthier. I know Jaren Jackson's back from suspension, and Brandon Clark's supposed to play today. And
it puts you right in the backdoor territory where you're up 15 to the game, and then they rally at the last second and make a three with down 10 or 11 at with 10 seconds left, and you lose.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if you want to tease it, you could definitely talk me into that. Maybe like a Celtics Memphis Grizzlies teaser of some kind. 8 points is a lot of points with the Memphis Grizzlies. I mean, I'll lay 8 points with the Milwaukee Bucks. The Memphis Grizzlies, I don't know. That's not really.
Wait, if the Bucks were at home playing Detroit and the line was -8, I'd be donating my bank account. So.
Yeah, I would probably be dipping into the kids' college fund. So that would probably be the case too. But yeah, I mean, for me, I think that's just, again, it's enough points that I'm going to stay away from it, which is, why Vegas made it that many points. So next game, Minnesota against Sacramento. Do you know – I'm going to throw a stat out here for you. I don't know if you know this. Do you know Karl Anthony Towns was last on a winning basketball team on Thanksgiving? Between being out and just a losing streak since he's came back, the last game he won was on Thanksgiving.
Wow.
That's crazy to me. But, again, that's been Minnesota's season at this point. That's why they're talking about trading Robert Covington. That's why, Jimmy Butler wanted the fuck out of there as soon as he could. That's one of the problems with this team. So anyway, Sacramento, unsurprisingly after that talk, favored by 1.5. I'm actually seeing it go up to 2 in some places here since the open. 228 was the opening total, down to 226.5 here. Thoughts on Minnesota, Sacramento?
Yeah, I had the over-under at 226 and the spread at 3. So it was just barely a no play in Sacramento. This is another one where in-game opportunities, watching it, with the fact that both these teams are highly reliant on shooting three-pointers, you're going to have a lot of ebb and flow in the game here. It's probably the biggest game where you're going to see runs going back and forth. So it's really a good one to do some live betting, even a possible middle opportunity here, because there's going to be times where teams go on 12-0, 14-0 runs here just because they can score that many points in a 3-minute span if they get hot. If Buddy Hield decides to, go be fire from 3, or, Karl Anthony Towns goes crazy for a little bit. So I'll look for it live.
Yeah, I'm actually hoping Minnesota comes out to a little bit of a lead here so we can get down on the Sacramento side, because Buddy Hield has actually been coming off the bench lately. They've been starting Bogdan Bogdanović and then bringing in Buddy. And I think it's actually a good move for them, because Buddy then gets to fire away with the second unit and score some points. So like Paulie was saying, he gets hot, knocks down 3 or 4 threes. They go from being down 10 and you getting +7 on them to, being tied or being up 1 or 2 and you getting, +4 or 5 on the other side. And you get a nice 6-7 point middle there that you can kind of hang with.
Yeah, you can either middle, or if they get down, you can just, let's say if Sacramento's down 10 in the first quarter, you can probably get a +200 money line. You can take that and you can scalp it back when they rally. And pretty much just sit on a free bet there for Sacramento to win.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea too. So come on, Minnesota, hot start here. Get us some good opportunities. We don't have a lot of good opportunities pre-flop, so hopefully some of these things work out. We can make some good in-game opportunities and still make some money tonight, which is the idea. Because on a 10-game slate, I don't want to have 2 bets tonight. There should be more action on a 10-game slate. I don't want to only walk away with 1 or 2 things here. All right, so the last game, San Antonio, LA Clippers. I guess you could call it a Kawhi Leonard revenge game, via Toronto and a championship for one season. Clippers big favorites here, 10 points. Everybody's back here. The Clippers got Paul George back. They got Kawhi Leonard healthy for this one. All the other guys, Patrick Beverley, Lou Williams, they're all in here today for this game. San Antonio doesn't really have any major injury news. It's just they're a 10-point underdog in a game with a 227 total to a very good Clippers team. Anything you're seeing here?
Yeah, this is one of those where, like, at the beginning of the season, if you're like, wow, San Antonio getting, 10 points on the road.
Mm-hmm.
But, once you take into consideration how bad San Antonio's played this year, this line makes complete sense. I have it lined at 9.5, so no real value there. And the total just hasn't moved at all. Opened at 227.5 and pretty much just stayed right there. I got it at 228, so nothing for me there either pregame.
Yeah, San Antonio is not the San Antonio of old. They're playing a lot faster right now. They're not as good defensively. I could easily see them getting blown out here by 10, 15, 20 points, especially with Paul George. Paul George only played 24 minutes last game, and he, put up 20-something points, had 40 fantasy points. This team is scary good when everybody's in there. They were very good last year in the playoffs, and they basically added Kawhi Leonard and Paul George and really didn't lose much on the side. So this is going to be a very good team. That's why a lot of people were expecting them to win. And that sums it up for us today. That's all 10 games. Anything you want to add before we sign off here?
No, I'll be in chat tonight looking for any of these live opportunities that we talked about as we went through the show here.
Yeah, and I'm going to be doing the live stream tonight as well for the daily side of this. So I'll have some breakdowns for some daily, and I'll have my cheat sheet coming out for the cash games for daily as well. So you can get that over at EliteFantasy.com. You can get with Paulie in the chat room over at EliteSportsBetting.com. And if you have any other questions, we do have the season-long site as well, FantasyGuru.com. They got the XFL starting up here today in case you're still jonesing for some football. And a lot of the baseball stuff has been rolling out too. So make sure you guys get over there and check it out. So for Paulie, this is Benny, and this has been another episode of The Opening Line.